Sometimes the stories that hit the hardest are the quiet ones. I have been spending the last few days thinking about a demo that I played called Sohee, and honestly, it feels less like playing a game and more like stepping into somebody's life at a really fragile moment. Instead of doing a super formal review like I normally do, I wanted to talk about what it actually feels like to play. The tone, the choices, the atmosphere, and whether this feels like something that you would want to play yourself. A huge thank you to Digital Touch for sponsoring today's video. Now, before we get into my initial expectations of the game, the demo is live on Steam right now in English and Korean, and the full release is going to have traditional Chinese, simplified Chinese, and Japanese translations as well. Now, I love a good emotional narrative game. Like, yes, please get me invested, make me cry, ruin my night in the best way possible. Those are honestly the games that stick with me the most. So when I saw Sohee described as a story-driven emotional game, I was like, okay, I hope I'm going to feel something here. From the outside, it gives off that reflective, almost quiet kind of vibe, and usually with narrative indies like that, I kind of expect one of two things. Either it is very visual novel heavy, where you're mostly reading and picking dialogue options, or it is more cinematic and a bit dramatic right away. So in my head, I was preparing for something dialogue-driven and pretty straightforward, but the first 10 minutes actually surprised me here. The game opens up in a really personal way. You're introduced to her name and the meaning behind it, and she's the one telling you the story. It immediately feels reflective, like you're being trusted with something. Then you're placed into her everyday life. You see her in familiar spaces, you move through a normal routine. There's ambient city noises, subtle background sounds, but nothing exaggerated. And what I loved is that it doesn't scream something dramatic is about to happen. It feels ordinary and grounded. You're walking home, stopping somewhere briefly, interacting with small things, and the game lets you click, explore, and just observe the world around you. And I remember thinking while I was playing, oh, this game definitely wants me to slow down. That shift from expecting drama to realizing that this is about stillness really changed how I approach the rest of the game. It's not about the shock value, it's all about the immersion here. Something else that I want to talk about for a second is how the demo itself is structured, because demos can sometimes feel like tiny little slices of gameplay that end before you really understand the game. In this case, the demo is around 30 minutes long, which I actually think is a really nice length for a story-driven game like this. It gives you enough time to settle into the atmosphere without feeling rushed. What surprised me is that it's broken up into 5 chapters, so instead of being like random snippets of gameplay, it actually feels like you're progressing through the opening parts of the story. Over the chapters, the demo slowly introduces you to the main character and the situation that she's going through. It doesn't throw everything at you all at once, instead it gives you pieces of her life, routine, and the emotional space that she's currently in. By the time the demo ends, you don't necessarily have all of the answers yet, but you understand enough about her to feel invested in what might happen next. And for me personally, it definitely left me curious. I kept wondering whether she eventually finds some kind of peace or just reconnects with the parts of herself that she's struggling with. Now, while the demo is short, it actually feels like the first chapter of a larger story rather than a quick little preview. Structurally, yes, this is a point-and-click style of game, but that description doesn't really capture how it feels. You move from place to place in a guided way. There are little search icons that pop up when you can interact with something, so you're not just wandering around aimlessly. It gently directs you without over-explaining things. Now, when you walk into a room, there's this pause. You're not bombarded with tasks, you just look around and maybe there is an objective that gives you a little bit more context. Maybe there's something small that you can click on that reveals a thought or a little memory, or maybe a small cutscene. It is very intentional. And I actually liked that the game doesn't constantly tell you what something means. Sometimes you click on something and it just exists, and you're left to interpret it. The dialogue choices are really subtle too. You get moments where you can choose how honest she wants to be about certain things in her life, and those choices don't feel super dramatic, they feel really personal. It's less change the whole storyline forever and more just how is she coping with things right now. And I caught myself thinking about those responses more than I expected. When I get to pick choices in games, I always want to do a second playthrough just to see the other option. Like, what would I do in this exact moment? It felt very heartfelt and emotional. And while I was playing, my brain kept on trying to guess what was going to happen next, not in a twisty thriller kind of way, but in a I hope she's okay. That's when I realized I was fully invested. Now, one thing I really want to highlight is the emotional tone because it feels distinctly Korean in its restraint. The storytelling isn't loud, it doesn't push you into tears with swelling music and dramatic cutscenes. Instead, it allows you to sit in what she's feeling. It's quiet, it's emotional, and it makes you feel the weight of things without spelling everything out. There is a lot of silence here, and that silence definitely feels intentional. In a lot of Western storytelling, grief or growth is shown through big confrontations or just huge emotional outbursts. Here, it feels more internal, more reflective. You're often just walking, sitting, interacting with personal belongings, going through small cutscenes, and those small moments carry a lot. It handles grief and growth in a subtle way, and it doesn't rush her healing. It doesn't force a dramatic breakthrough either. It feels like it understands that moving forward sometimes just means taking one small step at a time. And I think that restraint is what makes it hit harder for me. Now, visually, this is a pixel art style of game, and I really liked what they were doing here with the color. There are moments, especially when it's tied to a memory, where everything feels warmer, more vibrant, and almost softer. And then there are scenes where the space just feels empty and a little bit more heavy or more muted. You can really feel that emotional shift without anyone having to say it out loud, just with the visuals alone. Now, that kind of visual storytelling always gets to me. The music also feels really important, especially because of her dream of becoming a musical actress. Even in this short demo, the writing feels intentional. It's not trying to be flashy or overdramatic. It's focused, it knows what story it wants to tell. And since the full game is designed to be around an hour long, this demo genuinely feels like the first chapter of something that's meant to feel emotionally complete by the end. Now, this game really reminded me of why I love emotional indie games. They are always very reflective and healing in a way. I definitely felt a little teary-eyed, not because something huge happened in the exact moment, but because of the build-up. I really wanted to know what happens next. Like, does she find happiness? Does she reconnect with herself? It lingered with me for a little bit after playing. And honestly, that's usually a sign that the story did something right. Now, if you enjoy slower, story-first games that explore emotional themes with some cultural depth, is very much a game for you. It's a game that asks you to sit with a character rather than just rush through the objectives. The demo is available now for you to play on Steam. I'll be sure to have a link for you in the description below. Now, let me know in the comments what stood out to you about Sohee and if you see yourself playing the game. If this video helped you get a feel for the game, make sure to like and subscribe for more cozy gaming content, and until next time, happy gaming.